Why did you agree to voice this character? Was the reason Ryan Reynolds or Deadpool or both?
Why did I agree to do this? I thought it would be something new for me to do, a novel challenge, something I've not attempted before. To lend my voice for the Hindi version of what I find to be a really, really cool film. I watched Deadpool 1 and I absolutely loved the movie. I loved the character and I loved Ryan Reynolds in it. And that has a lot to do with why I agreed to give my voice for the Desi Deadpool, as they say. It's because I really love the film and the character, and there was a new challenge there, that I had not done something like this before. I thought it would be fun to use foul Hindi language on screen, to be honest. I just wanted to give galis on screen. That's the long and short of it.
What do you find most appealing about Deadpool?
What I find most appealing about Deadpool is his uninhibited nature, his brand of irreverent humor, and I love the fact that he doesn't take himself too seriously or any situation seriously, that he always sees the humor in situations and he's always on the lighter side of things. I think Ryan Reynolds is brilliant in the way that he plays Deadpool. There's so much of his own personality that he infuses into the character that it really hits the home run. I really enjoyed this entire process. I think the Hindi version has its own, charm and quality to it. When you, for some reason, at least this is my personal opinion, Crass Hindi is just somehow sounds way more impactful than Crass English. But that's just me. I don't know. It's just the if you curse in English versus Hindi. I mean, for me, there's no comparison. Hindi is just way cooler and it has way more of an impact. And I can vouch for that since I've done this. It's a lot of fun. It just, as I had explicated to Mr. Reynolds in my tweet, it is so fulfilling to be able to curse in Hindi in a film for a character. It's the best thing. I'm so glad I did this.
Do you think you've done justice to the role by your voice? How hard it is to give your voice to a character not played by you?
It's very difficult because the choices for you as an actor have already been made. You have to align with those choices to a great degree. So yeah, it's very difficult. I have a newfound respect for dubbing artists, voiceover artists. What they do is not easy at all, and it's very, very tedious, and it is time consuming, and it can be exhausting, and it takes a lot of skill. It takes a lot of application of the mind, and yeah, it was all in all a fulfilling process, and it taught me a lot. It was also a little more difficult because the people who were behind the console, the supervisor, the operator, the writer, they were all saying how Deadpool is a particularly difficult character to dub for because he's so talkative. He always has something or the other to say in any situation. He's just got verbal diarrhea. He just goes on a tangent and just keeps rambling, says any odd thing at any given time. So definitely a slightly more challenging character to dub for than usual. But I relish a challenge, and I really, really enjoyed this process.
Many fans are saying that Ranveer and Deadpool are a perfect match. Would you like to physically play a role in Deadpool 3 if it happens?
Yeah, I mean, Uh, I mean, yeah, who wouldn't want to be a part of a big ticket, tent pole Hollywood superhero franchise? Sure, if there is an interesting character, why not? Um, I always maintain never say never. But what I'm most interested in is to see where the next Indian superhero is going to come from. You know, I don't think we're very far from seeing a big ticket Indian superhero in a big screen bonanza feature film that can be turned into a franchise and whatnot. We do have some homegrown superheroes. I have for a while been in conversation and exploring this unique opportunity to present an Indian superhero. So whilst this was a gig that I did for fun, what I'm serious about is to be a part of the growth and development of the superhero genre out of India.
Jokes are often lost in translation. Does it make sense to literally translate the funny one-liners while dubbing or use a Hindi equivalent?
It's very difficult actually. More often than not, Deadpool in the film cracks jokes and delivers one-liners and punchlines that don't have a direct cultural translation. They are culture specific to the USA, and only somebody who's born and raised in that culture will get it. It doesn't translate for people who are born and raised or hail from other cultures. So that cultural translation you have to do for them. You have to apply a certain bit of your general knowledge, and if you are the actor voicing the part, then you have to contribute in conjunction with the writer. You have to come up with something that works. That is one. You have to be able to structure it in a way where the exact line that you're saying fits into the exact timing of how it is said in the English version. तो उतना ही time मिलता है आपको बोलने के लिए, and you have to fit it in that. So you have to word it very specifically. So if it's a 5-word sentence or a 5-syllable sentence, then you can only have 5 syllables. You can't exceed it. That's difficult to compress it or to structure it. The cultural translation, sometimes, like if you really get into the making of how I've dubbed for this, when you compare the English and what was said in English versus what is said in Hindi, you'll be like, who would have thought? Because sometimes it is really tangential. Sometimes there is no cultural translation for what is said in English, that you have to, if you're saying it for a Hindi speaking audience, it has to be that. And I think if people do a comparison of the English and Hindi version, they'll be surprised at some of the ways in which lines have been translated. So that's the most difficult process. Sometimes you do get stuck, like there are no answers, and then you're just choosing between one that works better. But very often it doesn't translate, and that's the expertise of the writer, that's the skill of the performer, and it all comes together to try and make it work. But it's not that workability is not always forthcoming.
How far India is behind for making a bona fide superhero movie with a decent visual effect? Is it just technical expertise and budget, or lack of willingness?
I personally am very keen on seeing a true blue Indian superhero. I don't think at all that it has to do with the lack of willingness. In fact, we have a plethora of Indian superheroes that can be adapted for the big screen. But yes, it is somewhere or the other a function of visual effects and where they are in our country at this point versus where they are perhaps in the West, far more evolved and further ahead in terms of technological know-how. So visual effects capabilities are so strong there, and we, of course, our audience has access to all those films. So there is a certain standard that you need to match. So if you're making a film on an Indian superhero that is made in India, the visual effects have to be just as good. And now I can very, very proudly say that VFX has reached a stage in India where you can make an Indian superhero film that can be at a world-class level. I think we have the stories, we have the characters, we are very rich in that context, but it's just around the corner, and I'm hoping to be a part of the spawning of that new culture. We of course have Shaktiman, and and yeah, I think the new age adaptation of the superheroes that we've grown up loving should be something to look forward to. I think it'll bring about a positive change for Hindi films. It will be that big screen experience that will demand that an audience goes and experiences on the big screen. I think from what I know from my interactions with producers is that a lot of people are trying to mount such films.